Well, a lot of the conversation, certainly this morning and today has been about how we invest into the growth. And we heard, messages from the stage about the importance of multicultural marketing, about the power of creative for growth. And that's something we're really, really passionate about, bringing the creative back to the forefront, both from a perspective of getting the right message in front of the right audience, but also increasingly using technology to make sure that it's resonant. So I think growth, is both, we have to be mindful of the bottom line as partners to marketers to ensure that they're able to grow their top line growth, but it's really refreshing to hear the conversation today that technology is a priority, that audiences, not the sort of standard demographics that we've been navigating for years, but how we're really leaning into multicultural audiences is an example. And just hearing the priority of marketers around how we invest in this time of uncertain economy by using the creative tools that we have to really empower that growth.
Touched on a number of things there. I want to go back to a couple of them. One, advertisers sort of prioritizing their investments in this time. How does that shift, their approach to investing in TV?
Well, TV has always been an enormous part of the media sort of investment overall, and it's still a really big workhorse. I think the most important difference, and I think it's, we've talked about it for probably 20 years now, but the definition of television has fundamentally changed. So I was actually taking notes this morning. The amount of times I heard the word video as opposed to television, and just the role that digital has really played in sort of transforming the mindset of how we think about that investment is really, it just sort of hit home for me today, how far we've actually come. So I think that's really optimistic, but in terms of where we see investment going then, think about what that means. If we're no longer talking about a traditional definition of television and we're thinking about all video, we have to think like marketers, they're thinking about video everywhere. And that's increasingly in digital environments. So, obviously Innovid, our role is to ensure that as connected television grows, we're flanking, the delivery, the measurement that we've provided for that channel with now more perspective into the rest of digital video and also in traditional television. But it's really about breaking down the sort of shackles of what we used to think about as television. It's all video now.
Which is another specific segue though, because measuring TV in the old way seemed easy-ish. And now we have multiple different platforms and channels and delivery devices to measure. What are you seeing in terms of advancements in measurement?
Well, a big one I'm passionate about is I think we, as an industry, we're finally moving towards impressions, and it's such a basic thing. But having worked in this business for a long time, I appreciate that sometimes the basic wiring of how this stuff works behind the scenes is really critical. So a transformation and move to impressions across all video just absolutely unlocks an enormous amount of things. It changes the way we count. It changes the tools. If you think about panels as a tool, panels are still a tool, but other types of data, ad serving data, ACR data, they all kind of play a role in now better accounting for every single impression. And I use the word accounting choicefully because that's really what we're in the job of doing, making sure we can account for everything that we have delivered on behalf of the marketer to the consumer. So I think that's a really important shift. And then you think of all the things that sort of engenders, right? If we're now looking at individual spots, we're not talking about pods anymore, and particularly in streaming, we've got to get beyond thinking about, just an interstitial that's like, 5 ads and the way that we've always done it in traditional television. So I think, a lot of the massive change in streaming and the growth in streaming has also allowed us to start to use these new tools and start to be a little bit liberated in what the ad experience can be. So, there's a lot of change, but those are some things that I'd call out as both fundamental to the media and sort of media efficiency side, but also the creative. We're enormously passionate about giving marketers tools to optimize the creative experience as well. The way that they buy, means that they've committed some things up front. That'll probably still be a factor, but you can always optimize the creative. And I think what we've seen in the last 18 months is that the tools, the technology, the data has kind of arrived that we're now able to give marketers just as much granularity as they've maybe had on the media side and have the same visibility on the creative.
Are you finding that there are specific types of marketers that are more interested in that creative optimization and creative measurement than others? One might think it would be sort of DTC or challenger brands, but are you finding that interest across the board?
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's really interesting. So I would say yes, and we have the privilege of working with a lot of big national brands, but one common thing that we've heard over and over again is the need to tether together national branding advertising with more creative tactical messaging that's maybe happening more at a local level. It's a little bit more targeted with a call to action. So it's sort of bringing together traditional branding with performance advertising, and I think it's always been thought that those were really different things. More and more we're seeing, and talking about creative briefs where there is a continuum. They're not completely siloed, but how do they work together? And so a big part of what's driven our investment is actually having a platform where you can see those things together. So we go from reach, from big national awareness campaigns into performance, DTC, more tactical, creative, but being able to see it all together is kind of a big unlock for marketers.
So is performance TV an actual thing?
Oh my gosh, let's coin a new phrase. I think it can be. I mean, for many years we were talking about connected TV as being a little bit of a panacea. It can do all of these things, and I think it can. It's true. I mean, it has digital capabilities. You can bring data to the equation, but it doesn't have to be. So I'm very use case driven, right? If that's what the creative brief calls for, then yes, we can use video. Today I'll use the term video and maybe not TV, and we can make it performance driven. It can sort of be that workhorse in the campaign, but CTV, all video, inclusive of traditional television, I don't think it'll ever stop being a big sort of reach awareness platform as well. So I like to think it can do both, but not to sort of overcrowd things. Just really be sort of intentional with how we're using different media.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having us.